We are today back at Seatown, one of my favourite beaches in Dorset. It's maybe 3/4 of the way through October. There is a big swell today, and there are some big crashy waves. So I won't be going too close to the surf, but we've got a mission today to find some fossils. So today what I want... Oh, Eva. All right. So today what I want to do is walk up to the end here. We've come here to be here for the falling tide. So we're going to walk up... So we're going to walk up. Usually we go as far as the rocks and no further. This is called Golden Cap here. But just beyond these rocks, there's another little bay. And I've heard that it can be quite good for fossils. Yeah, I'm not going to get much closer than this. Something floating out there, I don't know what that is, a log or something. I'm not going to get much closer to the surf than that, because every now and again you get a wave that comes in a little bit more vigorously than the others, and it'll catch you unawares. So we'll walk around this point, I think, far up from the surf, and stay out of the actual water. So today my objective is to try to find a decent ammonite fossil to replace my prized specimen that I had from here before. My best golden ammonite that I had in my collection was from here before, but I gave it away to an admirer. Oh, Jenny's found one already. Nice find, well done. Let's stick that in your pocket. Nice one. So Jenny's winning so far. But yeah, so my best golden ammonite fossil, I gave it away to an admirer. When I say admirer, somebody who was admiring the fossil, not me. So we're going to try and find a replacement for that golden ammonite. Whoa. Oh. Okay. The sea is not respecting its boundaries today. Oh look, I did find a little bit of sea glass. Tiny piece of sea glass. That'll go in the collection. Anyway, camera off now until we've got something to talk about. Jenny's taunting me. I think she's just found another one. What you got? Nice, nice. I haven't found... What you got, Eva? A rock? Oh, it's the same rock. Well, I haven't found anything yet. I was tempted to think that might be a piece of an ammonite, but I don't think it is. I think that's just a piece of quartz that just happens to have bands in it. So we've timed our visit today on the falling tide, because as I say, I want to get past these rocks if I can. Today might not be the day for doing that. On looking at the state of the surf, it might even be that with the tide all the way down, that it's still not safe to go around those rocks. This is a big wave coming. That's a big one. So I've often said that whilst a lot of people do come here and they dig in the cliffs for fossils and they're looking up there, that often the best fossils that you can find are the ones that are weathered out and survived the process of being tumbled on the beach a little bit. The more durable fossils, the better quality fossils, are the ones that have survived that process. And so usually I would say stay down on the foreshore, but today there is a little bit of a hazard attached to that. So that's my first fossil for the day, a very tumbled belemnite. I'm not sure I'm going to keep that, but at the moment that's the only thing I found, so that's going in my pocket for the moment. Nice piece of quartz there. Not really sunny enough to appreciate the proper translucency of that, but there we go, a piece of kind of translucent quartz, possibly lime bay agate. So we are here today in the wake of Storm Ashley, which hit the UK in the last couple of days. We didn't get it very bad down here in Dorset, but the northern part of the British Isles got hit pretty hard. However, all that storm business, I mean, this is the aftermath of it here, really. It does slightly increase the chances of us finding something decent today, because the waves have been up here beating against the cliffs. They've been washing things out. We may have a little wander along the base of the cliffs at the less steep bits and see if we can find anything that's washed out, maybe on the way back. Meanwhile, eyes peeled. Probably better if I turn the camera off, to be honest. Jenny's found another piece. Yeah, there definitely was. You can see the segmentation on the inside there. Bit too worn to really be worth keeping, that one, I'd say.
Yeah.
Well, up to you. Now here is an example of a Budleigh Salterton quartzite pebble from the same formation as the Budleigh Salterton rocks, which you've probably seen in another video, or you might have done. And as I understand it, geologists are a little bit puzzled about how the Budleigh Salterton rocks found their way to Lyme Bay, because there's a big headland in the way, so it's unknown whether they were transported here by some means, you know, glaciation or something from Budleigh Salterton formation, or whether it's a separate outcropping of the same mineral and just weathering out as its own set of pebbles here anyway. But that's definitely a Budleigh Salterton quartzite. I've just found another very small and broken and worn belemnite. Not keeping that one. I should very much like to go and explore this flat bit down here where the finer gravels have all laid out flat, because that's where I found my best ammonite fossil before. But well, that's why that's not necessarily a viable idea today. So up here we got a cliff that's not too steep, so I'm not in huge danger going up here to have a look for stuff up here at the foot of the cliff. You can see by where all this flotsam has accumulated that the waves do come all the way up here when there's a storm. So rather sorry collection of litter here, actually, unfortunately, as well as driftwood and other materials. But this is obviously washed all the way up here during the storm. So this could be, because the waves do crash against the clay and the shale and other materials here, this could be a good place to look for fossils that have recently washed out. So I will have a little look along here, see if we can find anything promising. I'm not going to go digging through all the sticky mud just to look for things, and I'm certainly not going to start doing things like prying nodules out of there and splitting them in half. That's not my jam. So what we're looking for here is not just weathered cliff, but it's the right layers of the weathered cliff as well. So these ones might be too high up to find Jurassic fossils. A good indicator will be if we find pyrite nodules weathered out, which I'm not seeing a lot of at the moment. I'm not going to go underneath bits of the cliff like that. You see there's a big crack in that chunk of cliff there and it's quite steep. I will skirt around that, because that piece there could still be prone to coming down. Of course, these trees here were once up there, so this is a a landscape that's continually changing because of the action of the waves. I thought for a moment I might have found one there, but it's just a little pebble, I think. Another piece of sea glass, very small piece of sea glass, and that's about as big as they get here because of these crashing waves. They break up the sea glass into tiny pieces. Anyway, we'll continue looking. Yeah, so this piece of cliff here, you can see the cliff is not only more steep than the other bit I was along there, but you can see there's a fault there, there's a crack. That big chunk on the front there is going to come down sometime fairly soon. Maybe today. In fact, I can see there's a crack into the cliff there as well. Anyway, yeah, I'll skirt around that bit, I think. We'll give that a bit of a wide berth. The actual risk of that falling on my head is minimal, but since it's an avoidable risk, let's avoid it. Another little piece of sea glass. I didn't even really intend to be picking sea glass today, but we are where we are. And here's perhaps an apt demonstration of why you wouldn't want to be here when the cliffs fall down, because it's not just sloppy mud that slumps down, it's big chunks of rock, probably from up the top there, and that's not just going to bounce off you, is it? Now you can see by the footprints in the gravel here that I'm not the first person to walk along here since the last tide. So that's a piece of an ammonite. Okay, that's a little piece of an ammonite. They're not particularly a good quality specimen, but again, that's going to go in my pocket because that's the best I've found so far. So yeah, we're not the first to walk along here. However, that doesn't mean there are no specimens to be found. From experience, I've been here late in the day when the tide is just coming back in and everybody's already had their chances on the beach, and I've picked up quite big pieces of quite pretty looking ammonites. Some of those big crescent shaped sections that I found in the past have been found on the beach towards the end of the day as the tide's well beyond turned, because there's just so much gravel to look at here on this beach. It's never going to be completely picked over just because somebody's gone along and had a look. Right, I'm seeing a lot more pyrite nodules here, so I'm just going to bear that in mind, because some of the best ammonites that you find on this beach are the pyritised, the ones that have been filled in with iron pyrite. Yeah, that's a chunk of iron pyrite. It's an iron pyrite nodule, but just a blob. What we're looking for is a case where the fossil has rotted out and then the imprint has been infilled or mineralized by iron pyrite, and they get to be some really pretty fossils. I suppose if I had any sense, I would focus on the bit of gravel that hasn't got footprints on it, and maybe that's where the best finds are still unfound. Yeah, again, there's big chunks there that wait to fall down. I think we'll just keep out of the way of that. I think here you can see more than anywhere else the actual potential hazard of walking under these cliffs. So There will be people tempted to dig in that pile of stuff there. I bet they already have. But look at these great big slabs of cliff that are separated, where water's percolated down and separated off a big slab of rock. Those are just waiting to fall. Never actually managed to catch it on camera. We've been here when slabs have fallen and we've heard it, and you turn and you kind of see it happening. But of course, turning the camera on in time to catch that is not a thing that's very likely to happen. What's up with you? Watch. I haven't got anything. Yeah. Of course, there is plenty of digging to be done, as always. We'll just get it. So yeah, well, whilst there might be some interesting specimens there, I'm not going anywhere near the bottom of that cliff. Right, camera's going off now until we either start trying to traverse these rocks, which is now looking like not such a good idea as it was when we were at home, or I find something. Well, there's a little section of ammonite, but very, very worn. Definitely that's what it is. I mean, they're so recognizable just from shape, and you can see the little frilled edges of the remnants of the shell there, but that's not worth keeping. I've got better specimens than that. Jenny's getting quite brave there with her proximity to the water. But actually the waves here, because there's a lot of submerged rocks, the waves here are breaking further out. So I might just get back down here on the shore. See if I can find something. Literally as I turn the camera off, there's a piece. That's a nice little piece of ammonite, we'll have that. That's possibly, yeah, that's definitely got a piece of ammonite buried in it. You can see there. I'm not taking that home. Someone else can have that. Oh, chunks of rock falling over there. Here's another section. I'm in two minds as to whether to take that one or not. I'll put it in my pocket for now so we can do a comparison with what Jenny's found. I think Jenny's probably going to be beating me today. Of course, if you happen to spot something on the video that I've missed, that's quite likely, since the camera is not necessarily always pointing where my eyes are pointing. If you happen to spot anything, let me know in the comments. Timestamps are useful if you do that, because then I'll know what you're looking at. Yeah, interesting how the waves aren't making it all the way in here, even though they are quite big out there, but they're just breaking on all of the submerged rocks. So here we can perhaps be brave enough to get back down onto the foreshore proper and have a scout along here. Here's a nice one. That's a nice piece. Obviously incomplete, and what I really am hoping to find today is a complete spiral. But that's a decent piece. Here also I'm starting to see more complete, or slightly more complete, belemnites. You get quite a lot of them at this end of Seatown. Can I find another one before I turn the camera off? There's probably dozens of them right in front of me, but you get kind of a bit visual fatigue looking at all of these pebbles. Anyway, those are pieces of belemnite. These little bits down here amongst all these rocks have been quite productive for me in the past, actually, for crinoid stems. Just because this seems to be a place where those things get sorted out and preserved. There are lots of belemnite pieces here, but I'm not sure I want to collect any more belemnite pieces. But we'll have a little look around, and there are, see, there's a pyrite nodule that might have something inside of it. I mean, there's a big ammonite here on the rock. Look at that. So you will find traces of ammonites here in the rocks that aren't necessarily going to survive removal, not worth trying to remove as specimens. And I imagine if we knew what we were looking for, we could find some spherical or ovoid nodules here that would break apart and reveal a fossil inside of them, but I'm not going to do that today. Let's just see what we can actually find. Oh, Eva, goodness sake. Oh, Jenny's found something. I'm going to judge from the fact that she's not picked it up that it's not pick-upable. Yeah. So a nice ammonite, or trace of, in that rock there. And there'll be a lot of that across these rocks. Why don't you find me a fossil, doggo? But yeah, I'm just going to have a look on this flat sand here, because this has been quite productive for me in the past. And then the plan is, if we can, to get round this headland here, because there's another little bay around the corner that I've heard tell is quite productive for fossils. It's a nice slab here with a belemnite still in situ in it. In fact, there's a few of them in here, along with some other bits and pieces of fossils. Unfortunately, these belemnites, even though there's a relatively complete one there, if you try to get that out, it will just break up. You can actually see it's fractured in several places already. And there's the remains of an ammonite just right there. But that's not what we're looking for today. I'm looking for a free specimen, one that's already weathered out, something I can just pick up and pretty much put on display as is. So there's a fairly recently weathered out belemnite. Actually, I might have that one. I don't know I want. Those are decent specimens. So yeah, sometimes these little cracks down here where everything's washed out and weathered out and just naturally come out of the rock is where you'll find the interesting stuff. But before I run out of camera battery, I'm just going to have a look and see whether there's any reasonable expectation of getting around this corner. This rock surface is quite slippery. It looks like slate, but it's more like hardened clay. So I do need to be quite careful here. And yeah, I think that might be a trip for another day with different boots. However, I will just have a look around here at all this stuff that nature has already washed out for us. See what we can find here. A piece of something. That's the imprint of an ammonite, but it looks like it's slightly, perhaps slightly opalized, so I might just keep that. Just take that off and wash it off somewhere. So you do also find down here pieces of bivalve fossils. So here are some examples of that. So these are like oyster shells or similar. These are fossils. And that particular layer just happens to contain a lot of, yeah, bivalve shells. This could be part of one of those, but it just maybe doesn't quite look like it. I don't know, we need to clean that up at home and see what we've got here. Here's an interesting thing to look at. It's not a fossil, but it's a natural phenomenon. So we've got here silty, sort of muddy water trickling down the rock face here, mixing with clear seawater that's seeping out of something else, and it's creating these vortices. That's pretty hypnotic. I could stand here watching this all day. But the tide will eventually come in. Now I did find down here there are pieces of ammonite, and that's one that you might stand a chance of chiseling out. I didn't bring a chisel with me and I didn't intend to. Eva! Right, I'm going to take a judgment call here. I could clamber across these rocks and get round to the little bay that's just beyond the point here, but not going to. Going to do that another day without the dog in tow, because this is just leg breaker country for the little doggo. So we'll stick around here on this little bit of exposed shelf. Going to have a hunt in all of the washed out bits here, just to see if there's anything interesting in amongst all this. We stand a fair chance of finding a decent ammonite in amongst all this lot, or something else. Anyway, camera off now because I think my battery's getting low. The other thing that's really interesting is this patterning in the rock here. Now I don't know whether this is just something contemporary, something here that's happening since this layer's been exposed. So this could be like the grazing marks of limpets and winkles and whatnot, or this could be fossilized traces of something like that, ancient snail trails, something like that. But yeah, it's a very interesting pattern, isn't it? Here's a section of ammonite which might be worth having. That's not bad. I'll just go and wash that off in a minute. I just found something really interesting though. So I found a decent belemnite in very recently weathered out condition, not complete obviously, it's missing a lot of its tail end, but that's nice. And then I found this, which is a really peculiar, it looks like sandstone nodule, something else in the middle there, and this bit in the middle here is this kind of soft clay. So it's got a crunchy outer shell, a soft interior, and perhaps a chewy nougat core. I'm going to take that home. We're going to have a look and dig out that middle bit and see what's in there. Might be a fossil. Neighbour. So while we're just sitting down here enjoying our coffee and a biscuit, Eva's living her best life. Just happened to glance down at the gravel and found a rather nice little crinoid stem, which actually looks like it's still got the last section before the head or the stalk or the base. I'm not sure which one that would be, but we'll have a close look at that when we get home. I've just found a very flattened but kind of complete ammonite. A lot of the details gone. I'll put it in the bag, but I'm not quite sure that's really worth keeping.
Oh, there's lots of these.
Yeah, lots of pieces of belemnite around here. I'm just going to have a little look around here on the sand, because this did seem to be a fairly productive spot for loose fossils. Found a big chunk of belemnite, nice one. I've just found a... Well, that's definitely a section of a fossil. Whoa! The tide's started to turn now, so we're going to have to be a little bit aware of what's happening down here. Yeah. I don't think that's the tide. I think that's just a little surge. But we'll just keep an eye on it. We're not in any danger here. But yeah, I think that may signal the end of our hunt today. Yeah, I think there's a piece of a bivalve shell. I'm not going to take that home. But yeah, I'm just going to have, until we get to this bit at the end of the rocks here, because the rocks are sheltering us from the harsher beatings of the surf, I'm just going to have a little look around here. Really nice piece of crinoid stem there. And star-shaped. These break up into segments, and on some beaches those segments persist as little star-shaped flat pieces called fairy coins. There's a lot of this crinoid stem on this beach here at Seatown. Really, all you've got to do to find some of this is sit in one place and sift through the gravel for long enough, and you will find a piece of crinoid stem. There's a lot of it here. Crinoids were, I think, and are, I think they still exist today, but crinoids are an organism that looks like a plant but is in fact an animal. Yeah, there's another piece of crinoid stem there. So if you can imagine, I suppose the best way to describe them is if H.R. Geiger gave you a bunch of flowers. Yeah, here comes the water. Yeah, another crinoid stem there. And you can tell these apart from the belemnites because they've got this kind of pentagonal or star-shaped cross-section. But yeah, all you really need to do here at Seatown to find crinoid stems, there was a piece there, I've just covered it up, I can't find it now. There we go. That's a very worn piece of crinoid stem, you can tell because it's got a kind of segmented look to it. But yeah, all you got to do to find it here is stay in one place, sift through the gravel. You're pretty much guaranteed to find crinoids. Got to be a lot more lucky to find the kind of head, the tentacles of the crinoid. That is not so common because they don't tend to survive weathering out of the rocks. So you'll only find them if you find them still in the matrix. Anyway, right, I'm going to have another little look around here, but it doesn't look like I'm going to find my replacement golden ammonite today. But we have found a couple of things that I wasn't really expecting to find today. So when we get home, we'll have a look at those. We are now nearing the end of the bit where the rocks protect us from the incoming waves. Let's just see if we can find one more fossil before we go. There's a section of belemnite. I don't think that really counts. What I was hoping for was a piece of an ammonite. There it is. And Jenny walked right over the top of that. Just goes to show you, you can be the last person to walk along this beach in between tides and still find things. Anyway, back to Studio Shrimp now, and we'll have a look at today's finds. Okay, let's have a look at the finds from this trip. So this is Jenny's bag of goodies. So Jenny's found several of these kind of worn hardstone ammonite pieces. That's quite a nice piece there. Still showing detail of more than one of the coils. Yeah, so a few pieces of ammonite and a couple of belemnites, a sort of middle section and a tip section there. So that's Jenny's finds. These are my finds, and they're a bit messed up actually, so I might need to wash them before we can have a proper look at them. And the culprit is this weird rock with a rock and some clay inside of it. I was just thinking about what this could be actually, and so there's several different potential explanations for what this could be. This could be that this was a nodule formed with this stuff inside of it, and we've just collected it as this has been broken off. Or it could be that this is some sort of hollow rock and this stuff has found its way in there after it's been deposited and filled in with clay or whatever. We're going to have a look at that in detail. Oh, that's just waste recycling. There was quite a lot of litter on the beach actually. Where there's been a storm, quite a lot of plastic had washed up. I did carry back as much as I could, but it was a rather overwhelming amount of litter on the beach there. Okay, so let's have a look and see what we got. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of green sea glass. And then I think that's my favourite piece, or piece of ammonite, just because usually they're a bit shorter than that when you find those. But again, several pieces of quite worn hard rock ammonites there. Another bit there with some pieces of the shell or the mineralized shell still visible. That's a slightly pyritised one with bits of shell still in it. A very, very worn down. This is a different species of ammonite, I think. This is like more like a nautiloid type of thing. So you can see it's a really wide and then rapidly tapering shell, I think. That one, which I think is my most detailed looking specimen, with 2 pieces of the coils. And then this, which is a, well, it's lost a little bit of its shine. I think that's just where it's dried out. But it's a what looks like a flint nodule with a piece of a shell attached to it. Quite a few belemnites, including some, you know, that's quite a nice intact piece, intact or good condition fragment. Quite a few of those. Oh, another tiny piece of ammonite there. More belemnite pieces. Another bit of belemnite. And then these, which are crinoid stems. And they've got this little sort of star shape cross section. And sometimes on the ends you can see some interesting detail. This one's the most interesting because this is a different colour. So these are kind of dark grey. This one's almost translucent, quartzy sort of colour. So I presume this one has actually filled in a little bit with quartz. And that segment on the end there looks like it might have been just at the base of the head of the crinoid. And then those 2 little pieces there. So that's the finds from that trip to Seatown. I didn't find a replacement candidate for my golden ammonite that I gave away, but never mind, we can go back there another day. And I also didn't get across the rocks to that little bay that's beyond Golden Cap. I could have done it, but it would have been unsafe to go across there with Eva because it's great big boulders and she'd probably fall and hurt herself. Anyway, this is something I'm quite curious about. So what we're going to do now is just carefully pick out this dirt and stuff and see what's actually inside of here. I might need to wash it out or I might need to pick it out. I don't know. I think so that we don't damage anything delicate, I'm just going to use like a wooden stick to pick away inside of there. We'll just whittle this down so we can make some sort of little implement for picking away at the thing. That'll do. So, yeah, we've got clay there, which is going to come out. But yeah, there's this central piece here looks like it might be fixed in place. Oops. Oh, I see. Ah, that's just... Okay, the whole thing is clay. That's interesting. I didn't expect that. I thought that was stone. So this is a kind of, well, slightly hardened clay with something in the middle of it, which could just be a rock. I think that might be a pyrite nodule. I'm just going to go and wash that off. I mean, I would say, judging by the look of this, that did form in place. This is a nodule, I think, that hasn't quite solidified and crystallized. So this is halfway to becoming rock, but it didn't quite make it all the way. So that's almost like a clay
but the mineralization hasn't quite set it. I'm just going to go and wash this thing off and see if that's got any interesting features. And the answer is not really. It's just a little piece of mudstone or something. Actually, it's not even, this itself is quite soft. So very strange. So there may even be something concreted inside of the middle of this. So we have a piece of grey mudstone surrounded by soft clay, surrounded by a shell of hardened clay or hardened mudstone that was brown. I've never seen anything like that before. Well, it's not clay because it's not dissolving. So it's a piece of something that's not quite turned into rock. Interesting in terms of this being something I've never really encountered before, but unfortunately disappointing in the sense that there's nothing really here to look at. There's no detail beyond that weird structure, what that is. One thing I will say, I'm sure somebody will say, wow, it could be a dinosaur egg. I'm pretty sure this is not a dinosaur egg. I don't think this is dinosaur or anything. I think this is probably a little bit too young to be a fossil. Anyway, that's the finds. Favourite find out of my lot, I think, has got to be that little quartzy crinoid stem. My favourite out of Jenny's finds is probably that piece of ammonite there, where we've got several of the coils in evidence. That was the finds from Seatown. We'll be back there again because I still need to find a replacement ammonite for my collection.
So that was our trip to Seatown, fossil hunting. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.